Oh, FNAF. Oh, FNAF, FNAF, FNAF. Now I gotta admit, uh, you make a decent looking movie. You make a decent looking movie. No, no criticism on that front whatsoever. But we have our tumultuous history. I am not a horror gamer. I actually can't stand horror in general. Um, and I don't care for your gameplay, like at all. Not that kind of gamer. But your lore, ah, your lore is just some of the most interesting things I've seen in gaming in general. Just riddled with mysteries, riddled with concepts, deep dives, books, all that stuff. Things that make you want to learn so much about what it is that a guy who used to work at Family Dollar made up. And the fact that he even participated in the creation of this movie led me further believe that this movie might have been a very good contender for a video game adaptation. Sadly enough, as far as the lore goes, no. Now, if you're just doing video game adaptations because of how these people go about Hollywood when they do shit, and it's like, well, this is what we did, that this actually is a decent movie in retrospect. Very decent. There's a lot of callbacks, a lot of things, nods and stuff like that that if you know from games or whatever, you would get. But in general, this movie fails like a lot. Just just from the concept of being like, hey, this is what the original game was. Much like with the Sonic movie, in terms of being like, hey, what is Sonic generally about? And it's like what the Sonic movie is, it ain't that. But the stuff that the Sonic movie did that essentially you kind of like tip your hat at because it's like, hey, if you're a Sonic fan, you get it. The times he get hit, he loses his rings, stuff like that. Like small little nods. It's like, hey, that's okay. There you go. Obviously, you care. The place where he winds up at is called Green Hill. Things like that. But those are small little nods. That's like, if you're a fan, then you understand and you know and you recognize. But in the grand concept of what they're doing, it ain't really hit. And the thing is that as far as FNAF goes, that's what plagued this movie. If you are a fan of the game series or you're someone who's deeply invested in the lore like myself, this movie doesn't really tickle that. Aside from just being, a lot of head nods and a bunch of stuff going on. In retrospect, I say that the Willy's Wonderland, the movie Nicolas Cage did, was a much better movie. But then again, that movie works better as a concept of a horror than what it is that they tried to present with FNAF. And that's disheartening, essentially because like Willy's Wonderland just did it first. But what Willy's Wonderland and what Friday Nights at Freddy's are supposed to be are two fundamentally, there we go. The fundamental friend dependability are two fundamentally different concepts. While as with Willy Wonderland, it was the people who ran like the little Chuck E. Cheese restaurant were actually murderers and they were killing people. Within Five Nights at Freddy's, the people who were murdered became the animatronics that wind up hurting and killing people. So, and then how that story actually is presented or how the lore is given, especially considering that Willy's Wonderland is an original IP, while Five Nights at Freddy's has a video game based off of it, um, really uh doesn't really it just didn't click. Like I really wanted there to be a scene in which, or like given a stipulation that the main character had to understand that there is a power construct within this, in the building, whereas like, you have to conserve your power, or it only runs for a certain amount of time because of the fact that it's still running. I get the notion of being like, in modern, well, not modern times, but like in a real job setting, wouldn't have an issue with power or whatnot. But that is a core concept of the game. You survive until your shift is over with. So if they would have to have had that type of construct where it's like, all right, I need to make sure and regulate, the power that I'm using and where I'm using it at to be able to do what I'm doing, then I'll be fine. Hell, they have multiple times where the character is asleep, and it's actually essential to the plot for this to happen. But he's asleep in a place where the game is based on being vigilant, you know? So it's like stuff like that kind of takes you out of the notion of what it is that this movie is trying to present in terms of an adaptation. So having these things present within the movie, it didn't ruin the movie. It doesn't mess with the movie, but it kind of takes away the fear of the edge of essentially what it is that Five Nights at Freddy's is kind of known for, which is the fucking jump scares because you're not vigilant enough. So those moments that they actually have where a character is kind of just in the zone and knowing that like hey, I need to be aware because shit's about to happen, or like they quickly react to stuff. The movie actually was shining brightly on those moments, like characters running, trying to hide and stuff like that. That actually is that fear of dread that you get from these fucking giant animatronic coming after you. That was honestly the more intriguing part of the movie. And I feel bad that essentially the movie itself didn't really convey that enough. Like, you only get at max three moments, 3 or 4 moments within the movie where it's like, all right, I actually am fearful about the person. But in 2 of those moments, oh yeah, you did. And then the other 2 moments is kind of like, I guess, but so it really kind of failed, just transitioning that concept over. Now, I'm not saying, again, not saying that the movie is bad. It's not a bad movie, but it is a bad adaptation. It is a bad adaptation, but it's not a bad movie, but it's a bad adaptation. Now, the movie itself revolves around a character who essentially has to do the night shift. Typical original Freddy Fazbear fanfare type of concept. You have to guard the place for a certain amount, of hours until your shift is up. But they never really gave any specifics on terms of survival, or it being where you're only there for 5 nights, or that he needs the money quickly for it to be the 5 nights. So, it never really gave that stipulation, which honestly would have also helped out. And then you have the actor who played William Afton, the guy who plays Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Why can I never remember his name? He is such a fantastic actor. And the movie really underutilized him so much. God, I wish he would have more scenes or something like that. It seemed as if the movie just kind of set him up. It just, like, there's so many missed opportunities that this movie had to actually be something worthwhile. And it's kind of disheartening, especially in terms of just collecting what the original game itself is and then what this movie could have did. For the most part, jump scares. There are like 3 jump scares in this entire movie, and they all involve Balloon Boy. And even then, they're not anything of note that's like, oh my god, like I'm jumping out of my seat, or hell, even having some of the animatronics kind of just jumping out at you, or like getting real close to the camera to understand and show you exactly what's happening to the person that they're attacking or whatever. And it's like, why not? Why would you not have that in this movie at like too much? Like, I can understand having too much of it, but not really having it at all. Fucking crazy. Because that's all that this series is built on. This series is built on jump scares. That's the main thing Freddy is built on. Not just the lore and all that bullshit. The jump scares is what skyrocketed this series to the stratosphere. So why not have this movie have just way too many jump scares? I would have preferred that than none at all. Hell, there should have been jump scares when they're not even doing anything. That's how iconic that concept is to this series. And it's like, to not have that is so ridiculous. I felt so unbelievably bored because they didn't do that. And then when they even tried to normalize the the animatronics kind of moving around and whatnot, I knew immediately where the story was going to go because it was so fucking predictable. But it just felt that it's like, well, even now it's like, okay, yeah, you understand that they're like they got ghost kids in them or whatnot, but are you going to do anything with that to increase the whole concept of like fear? It was like, nah, it was like, what? So very, very disheartening. Now, if you're gonna sit there and criticize, well, it's a PG-13 movie, it was like, no, you could do a lot of shit with PG-13. And again, a jump scare isn't something that would relegate something to be rated R. Hell, they have someone get bitten in half in this damn movie, and it would make so much sense if they had more scenes to kind of emphasize stuff like that. Now, as far as the story itself goes, it's one of the things where it's like, yeah, you kind of see it coming a mile away as soon as the main characters figure out that Freddy and his friends are like walking, moving animatronics, and it's like, oh yeah, we know exactly where this is going. So it's like, whatever. But as far as actually going based off of what it is that it was built upon with the lore, or what is believed by the lore based upon like the little 8-bit games that you can play within the mini games on some of the games, and other stuff that's established within things, like again, you have the phenomenal actor who played William Afton, who is the serial killer that killed all the kids in the first place. Him delivering the line at the end of the movie, because he says, I always come back, like it was like, yeah, that's really good, because that's actually something that this stuff is known for. And again, it's another like a nice little hat nod towards this series, but it's like, yeah, you didn't really utilize this well. So one of the things that I felt that this movie could have done to basically be all right, because they made a main character named Michael, and then the movie kind of tricks you by having him go around and not saying his last name. So you're kind of like going like, what, and then you don't know William Afton's William Afton, but he's not Michael Afton. So I'm gonna just kick that horse right now. He's not Michael Afton, but he is a person of interest towards William Afton in accordance to this movie, because of what this movie presents within its plot. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But it seems as though, because the movie kind of had it to where it's a police officer who gets heavily involved with what they got going on. She's related to William Afton and what they got going on. It seems as though this movie could have really played its strengths on the outlandish craziness that happens within the game as far as the lore is concerned. Whether it be William Afton's daughter being completely obsessed with making her father happy, which all he wants to do is just go around killing kids while wearing his fucking bunny suit. And then so like with her, she's totally cool with facilitating that and helping that become a thing and having that happen. Within the games, it's established that William Afton, upon basically almost getting discovered that the bodies of the kids that he killed would be found within animatronics, even though Freddy is ran down and kind of messed up, he goes and dismantles them. And I figured that would be a much better way of ending the movie, where it's like you have the Shaggy's character going around, like I said, Shaggy character, but the William Afton going around after basically figuring out that the main dude is slowly discovering what is happening, or what happened to the animatronics, who are still steadily trying to attack him every night, but he desperately needs this job, and so he just kind of hunkers down. He hunkered down and just try to ride it out, because it's because that's again the main staple of the game, is that it's a limited thing. And then you can easily still have the same plot points of like the little sister basically becoming friends with the animatronics and whatnot, but then you just slowly have it being revealed that he's understanding what happened to the kids, and then is willing to bring it to light, to where the twist is that the reason they never found the kids is because their bodies are inside the animatronics. Thus, when Afton finds out about that, he tries to dismantle the animatronics to get rid of the evidence that he killed those kids so he doesn't get caught. You'd have been fine. You would have been fine doing that, and it would have actually been a much better story, as well as what actually happened within the games. And then, upon dismantling the animatronics, the spirits of the kids come out, which freak him out. So he doesn't know that the animatronics are haunted. He just kind of chalks it up to them just being weird, and they wind up killing people because they're just all crazy. But then upon seeing the ghost and getting confronted by the ghost of the children, who basically might have get a new air of independence and wanting to fight back, considering talking to the girl and becoming friends with the guy and the girl, his little sister, and then essentially them trying to fight back, as well as even Golden Freddy, who has two spirits inside of him, which also they underutilized because they had Golden Freddy show up, but that was just it. And it was very weird and very odd, and they didn't even have the kid being accounted for when it came towards like looking at the spirits of the kids. Just weird shit. But you have you have all of that stuff being done, and to which when the spirits come out and they confront Afton, he runs to the spring trap animatronic, gets inside of it, to that which steals the kids, to where you finally see his overall visage when he was the way that he was when he killed the kids, which would have been, you know, very traumatic for them because that's what they were murdered under. And then it's something that empowers him, so he kind of still has that sense of superiority, to where it's like, in when I'm this way, I'm unstoppable. An easy conveyable thing, because they even have him put his suit back on by the end of the movie, which was pretty cool. And then he delivers the lines, you know, I always come back, and to which the spring trap activates because of how the animatronic is, and then he gets trapped in it to where he's supposed to, leaving him alive in just horrible pain, stuck inside of this suit that he can barely move in, kind of almost like living death. And that just how you end the movie, you know. And it's like you give a pseudo sense that the children are free when they're not, you know. And it's like the spirits will still linger around, and even the scene, even the end scene that they had in the movie can still be showcased again, where it's just the kids looking over him suffering while he's inside the spring trap. And then you just have it to where the security guard days are up, and then essentially he no longer has to do the be there anymore. And it didn't have to be to where he's struggling to keep a job so he can struggle to keep his sister, but more so, you know, he was forced to do this job because of you know, like in the beginning of the movie, you kind of have him on like a, you know, he got fired for accosting someone. You can have it to where it's like he's doing someone a favor, or he desperately needs this job in order to get another job. He needs the money that comes from this job. Something to make him stick out the days being there without looking for other employment. You know, something on that line of nature. But you know, you could have filled in anything in order to convey that. It was one more that I was thinking of. Or like the pay itself was really enticing to do. It's something, you know, something. He could have did something. But yeah, like what they did do was just very simplistic, very, very boring, and then very just kind of by the books pseudo horror. So it's not even scary, it's just kind of predictable. Well, if you've seen one horror movie, you've seen this. And like every action that every person in this movie makes is so predictable in terms of the idiotic and stupid. Even in the sense of being like, you know, whether or not you wanted to add some type of realism or whatnot, you could have did something so much better. But again, the moments of crunch when you got someone sitting inside of the security room freaking out because you seeing them do stuff, or they got stuff going through the vents and whatnot, and them reacting to it fast and moving and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, that's what the games are. So why not do that for the majority of the movie? You know, have him freaking out because they're attacking, and then he's constantly closing the doors, but then the doors are opening because of malfunctioning wires and stuff like that. So he's going back and forth from opening the doors, closing the doors, looking at the cameras to see who's where and what's what. And then getting a feel of what the animatronics are capable of doing. And then even when the girl kind of calms them down later on, you still get that crunch where he runs to the security room because he feels of a sense of safety, and then he still has to battle it out with these animatronics that at one point got the jump on him and almost defeated him. But when the time limit of the game ran out, he didn't die. And then now when it's like crunch time, and then he's essentially, you know, far more prepared to battle them, he's now far more susceptible, with the help of his sister, to be able to relegate the power, close the doors when he's supposed to, and do whatever he can to survive before he leaves. Which easily could have been impacted because of the fact that he was like, they were willing to give him what he wanted in exchange for his little sister, into which he tells him no, and then you just basically have the game play out within this moment. And it wouldn't necessarily be freaking a it wouldn't necessarily be this, this untamed or like boring concept of just like, all right, well, here we go with a, like, they're just pressing buttons and closing doors and opening doors and whatnot. But it's like, that is the spirit of the game, though. And it's like, you can make that far more actiony than I'm delivering it. But hell, like the scene where the guy actually stopping the cupcake from trying to kill him in the movie. And it's like, yeah, moments like that. And it's like, that actually was something that was like, yeah, this is very reminiscent of the games, as well as something that would make sense considering what it is you're dealing with. And it would have been fine. It would have been fine. But yeah, this is one of those movies where immediately after watching it, it's like my brain was just spinning with, yeah, this could have been handled a hell of a lot better. In contrast to what it is that we got, it could have been handled a hell of a lot better considering how the fan base perceives Five Nights at Freddy's in the first place. A majority of people enjoy the gaming series because of the lore, I myself included, and a majority of people enjoy the game because of the whole jump scare fear factor. It's very mild terror, which is why its core audience is like fucking 13-year-olds. So with that, you still have to understand, even though you're wanting to approach it mildly, it still should have a sense of terror, which this movie did not have at all. There were multiple times where I was like, dude, have one of the animatronics standing behind him right now, and he just does not know that it's right there. And it's like, dude, have something be somewhere, and it's like, you just don't know that that's like that. And even when it was revealed that the kids were inside of the animatronics, it was like, well, you didn't really get the sense of that being a bad thing, or like this being a twist about it or anything like that. And it's like, you're just saying it so it can be said, but it's like, this isn't information that's like necessary or anything right now. But it was like, just so I did enjoy seeing was it MatPat from Game Theory, as well as that was it the what's like Kakashi, the samurai guy, the YouTuber that's a real big FNAF person. I believe there was a Markiplier couldn't do it, but people who actually help the FNAF community and are well invested in the FNAF community itself, or lore and everything like that, the game franchise and series, these people actually being involved in the movie, that was pretty cool. And it's just funny with Game Theory, him being like, well, that's a theory. Actually, that tickled me looking at the movie. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, this definitely could have been handled a hell of a lot better. Even with the confines of being PG-13, what Freddy is should have still been scare heavy, but still be able to relegate towards that 13-year-old audience, which is what their core audience is. And again, that wouldn't have been a bad thing, because that's what makes this series. That's what made it what it is. So it just seems very off-putting that they kind of went away from that in order to bring about the movie that we got. Now, going back to the Nicolas Cage movie, I understand that in terms of me saying how different those movies are, and even in concept, doesn't even begin to specify exactly how fucking different they are, considering that the Nicolas Cage movie is filled with blood going everywhere, and these things being like eating people and shit like that. And then there was like Satanists doing a ritual and whatnot. It's like, yeah, I understand that. I totally get that. But you have to understand, it was like, that was something that still gave this sense of fear. Like, even the animatronics crawling through the air ducts, you could have had that with the little girl at one point. Even the notion of them, like, I guess, trying to make people as animatronics, they could have did something with that, because it just seemed like that was just this random thing that they did, killing people, sticking a crazy ass animatronic face on them, when it's like, yeah, it could have been what it was like, they just want more friends because they're lonely. Could have did that, but nah. Which is why they attack people, because within the gaming lore, it's perceived because these people are supposedly related to Afton, which is why they're attacking them to get revenge. But within the movie, you could add it to be where it's like they're attacking people because they're trying to make more friends, but they can't because most of the people that they get are grown-ups rather than the children, which are accessible to actually souls binding into the animatronics. That could have been an okay thing to justify. And then again, you still keep William Afton in the dark about this because he just kind of chalks it up to, well, the animatronics kind of start wigging out and then the people wind up dying, and then he just covers it up because he's no stranger to that. But at the same token, it's rare when they do it. That way you don't really have like a string of murders and disappearances happening around the place, which is again something that the Nicolas Cage movie was able to do well, because it's like you got people coming around that drift into town that don't know about what happened at Willie's, and then they wind up getting sacrificed to Willie's, which the town can easily cover up because it's like, we've never seen those people. We don't know what you're talking about. They just send people over there, they get killed, and then it's over with. While with this, and it's like, well, obviously you have a string of security guards checking the place, and then because of how the games themselves kind of work and function, they need security guards to watch the place because the animatronics can get out, and then they just kind of freak out and stuff like that. So something that easily also could have easily been added in, and you know, being like, hey, make sure people don't come in and trash the place, and make sure stuff don't get out. And then it's like, what does that mean? And it's like, well, I'll let you know. And then you just have more great acting by Shaggy as he becomes the guy on the phone, to where, you know, he's calling them every night to check on them, and like when he asks some questions and it kind of freaks him out, and then that's when he's trying to start to get disturbed by what he's asking, and it's like, look, I don't know anything about no kids dying, dude. It's like, just do your job. You only got one day left. What is wrong with you? And he's like yelling at him and shit like that, and then he comes in the middle of the night to try and dismantle all the animatronics after the guy survives with his sister, and he just escapes without telling them or whatnot. Again, like I said, it's something that immediately popped into my head that would have been a much better movie towards this series than what it is that we got. And that's just disheartening. That's really it. But yeah, overall, not a terrible movie. Wasn't a terrible movie, wasn't a bad movie, but it damn sure wasn't scary. And it really underutilized so many different elements as far as acting was considered, or just the overall notion of jump scares and the general fear and terror. The movie kind of gave you way too much information that the games kind of built steadily upon, and the movie just kind of just dumped this information in your lap as quickly as they can whenever they could, without giving you any type of insight towards characters that did get this jump. More than anything, Vanessa, who was just a walking exposition dump, which was also kind of dumb. And it was like, just throughout the whole movie dumb. And it's like, I wish you would have kind of came to the notion, if you was supposed to be William Afton's daughter within the series, if you were supposed to be like similar to Elizabeth within the gaming series, who's Afton's daughter, that is just gaga over helping her father. And it's like, I wish that's what you would have did. And it's like, even upon bringing it up, this information is more so just like, nothing really tangible to grasp onto. But you know, I came, I saw, I got over it. So that's my review of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Check it out if you want. Seeing as how they released it in theaters and in Peacock at the same time for some reason. I don't know why, but that's what they did. But yeah, that's all. All right, this has been another episode of Phone Flame. I've been yours, Danieltheflame. Become a subscriber if you want. I don't care. But as always, good people. Hope you have fun.